My experience working with Axis, I would describe it as extraordinary experience.
Axis has a passion and a strong desire to see pension assets impact the real sector economy.
It's been extremely professional. If you look at Axis's background, they have very well-grounded experience there.
They stand out, and you could see some trust in Axis.
Axis is unique for their preference for alternatives and how pension assets are deployed in the industry.
They have a very robust system that they can deliver on their mandate. We see more improvement. They make adjustments to their systems to reflect the current trends and the regulatory framework of MPRA.
I think from a tech perspective, my personal experience, their portal has basically everything that you need over there. In an era and in a country where there's not a lot that is given in terms of disclosure, you'd realize that Axis goes above and beyond.
What sets Axis apart in the pension industry is their customer-centered activities.
My experience with them, what set them apart is simple: delivery.
The team is very competent, both board and management.
You don't need to call them twice. You call them once, they'll be there to resolve the issue for you.
And that delivery is something that is always, when I see them, that is what comes into mind.
Did you know that over 70% of retirees exhaust their retirement benefits in 3 years? Without a solid plan in place, you risk depleting your savings prematurely, leaving you financially vulnerable in your later years. But your golden years can be better with the right plan. The Axis Retirement Income Plan is here to guide you towards financial security and peace of mind. Convert your lump sum benefits into guaranteed monthly income, tailored just for you. Choose between flexible payout options backed by expert guidance to secure your financial future, because your golden years should be full of peace, not worry. Add a golden glow to your golden years by enrolling on the Axis Retirement Income Plan and enjoy the retirement you deserve. Call 03-0273-8555 to speak to a pension advisor today. Axis Pension Trust, your reliable partner in pensions.
A pleasant good morning to you, our cherished customer, and it's always a pleasure to come your way, to interact with you, to share with you, to learn from you, to take feedback from you. This morning, as part of our Axis FutureReady Series, we are discussing a very, very critical topic, one that affects every one of us. And if you are seated or if you are ready, please join the entire Axis team as we bring you greetings from our management, from our board and the employees, as well as all our stakeholders. This morning we are discussing from paycheck to prosperity, mastering personal budgeting for financial freedom. From paycheck to prosperity, mastering personal budgeting for financial freedom. And on the call with me is Mr. Eric Quartey, who is a wealth manager at Axis Wealth Management and also the CEO of Axis Pensions Rwanda. Eric, you're welcome to the call.
Thank you very much, Opari, and I'm very excited to be on your platform.
Thank you, Eric. And my name is Isaac Oparinoy, and I'll be your host. Will not take so much of your time, so we'll move straight into the discussions. Once again, the topic is from paycheck to prosperity, mastering personal budgeting for financial freedom. And it's brought to you by kind courtesy Axis Pension Trust. That is your reliable partner in pensions. If you have any question, feel free to drop it in the comment section and we'll be rest assured will be addressed before we wrap up the whole program. So I'll move straight to the series of questions that through our initial research we received from our clients across the country and even beyond. So, Mr. Quartey, once again, welcome to the to achieve financial independence or financial freedom. And as we discussed this, one of the very, very common questions that we were receiving was, um, from your experience, what is many people earn income and they still struggle financially. So why is budgeting so important today from your experience? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pari, once again. Budgeting is essentially the bridge between what you earn and what you spend.
Okay.
Right. So what happens if there's no bridge? Most
Yeah.
likely you're going to crash. So that explains why you have someone who earns so much but struggles financially. You have
Sure.
someone who earns modestly but does well. So in the absence of a budget, regardless of how much you earn, your money seems to evaporate and you don't exactly know where your money has gone to. So basically your budget literally helps you allocate your money to areas of your life that are more important. And remember that your earnings are not infinite, they are finite. So it's very
Sure.
important that you need a budget which will be like a blueprint and it will tell you exactly where your money went. Exactly. So those
Sure.
are some of the reasons why, without in the absence of a budget, you are most likely to struggle and most likely not to know exactly where your money went.
Sure. Thank you very much, Eric. So you're telling us that our wants are limited, but the resources to meet them are very limited. And so we need to build that bridge between what we earn and what we spend. So from your
Exactly.
experience, what do you think is the biggest mistake people make about budgeting whilst they aim towards financial freedom?
Well, one of the things I would say is that in my line of work, one of the major budgeting mistakes is what I term lifestyle inflation.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's even for someone who's even decided to even budget, right?
Okay.
Now, the once there's cost of living adjustments, salary increments, promotions happens, you realize that people try to hike up their expenditure.
Okay.
The slightest salary increments, people want to upgrade their cars, want to change their lifestyle and things like that. When you have windfalls, when you have increments in salaries and all that, you're supposed to remain prudent.
Okay.
Practice things like delayed gratification so that the surplus becomes like your war chest. That helps you
Okay.
invest to have a much better future.
Sure.
Whenever you let your lifestyle move in tandem with your income, it becomes a bit problematic. Now, let me just give you one bonus mistake I feel people also make:
Okay.
budget without a goal. So, the whole purpose of having a budget is to let it align to a goal. So, for instance, you have a goal of saying that by 50, I should have built my own house.
Yeah.
So, when you budget, there's always an allocation towards that goal. So even if you budget and without a goal, you realize that, hey, why am I doing this after a
Sure.
point in time? So once
Sure.
there's a goal, it helps you drive hard towards that. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eric, for that. Now, still on the mistakes that people make when it comes to budgeting, we during the survey, what we realized is that one section of the respondent think that it is those who don't have money that should budget because once you have money, another group also thinks that they don't have anything at all. So why should they even worry themselves to budget at all? What do you think? Budgeting, is it for low income earners? Is it for people who DBs who are born into wealth? Who is budgeting for? Thank you.
So absolutely not. I dare say that budgeting is not a poverty tool. It's a it's a tool designed to help you build wealth. Okay, so in fact, the higher your income, the more critical it is for you to
To
budget because you
budget.
see,
Okay.
the temptations and financial obligations are proportionally larger for a high income earner. You
Sure.
live in the airports of this town, you drive the biggest of this car. So there's a lot more pressure on you to be able to keep your finances in check, to be able to, maintain your quality of life. So high earners face bigger mortgages, more social commitments, your church harvest chairman, you're paying and all those things,
Yeah.
higher school fees because you want your kids
Sure.
to go to international schools and things. So for high income earners, it's critical that you even budget even more aggressively.
Sure.
But without structure, A 30,000 cedis monthly salary can disappear just as completely as someone in 3,000 cedis. So it's very important that no matter how much you earn, you still take the whole subject of budgeting very, very serious.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. So we've learned that whether you are a low income earner or you came to meet a silver spoon, budgeting is very, very important for you. So if somebody is listening to us and based on this advice, he wants to start budgeting, what would you recommend or where would you recommend they start from?
I mean, um, not to contradict myself, but if you've never budgeted in your life, you don't start with a budget. I would recommend that give yourself a 30-day period, right?
Okay.
And start by tracking every single expenditure of yours.
Expenditure.
So from your Momo transactions to every fuel you buy, even lunch purchases, even tips.
Tips.
This will give you a wealth of data, real data about yourself. It
Okay.
tells you who you are. Okay. So based on that data, you can now start classifying, and then it will help you know exactly where most of your money goes to. And now with this new information you are receiving, you then start allocating. And based on that, after you do this exercise, then you are ready to start budgeting. Because if you
Okay.
just go straight into budgeting, most likely that you start and you stop somewhere. But
Sure.
painfully doing this exercise, it helps you know yourself well, and you're able to, and this whole interaction we're having with you becomes more meaningful because you know you've gone through the meal, done your 30-day health check or reality check,
Okay.
and then after that you can start building a budget.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Eric. So earlier when you were talking, you mentioned your monthly salary, etc. Sometimes people who don't earn regular income, so they are not, for example, in the formal sector where salary comes at the end of the month, but their income is regular. Today they can make 100,000, tomorrow a week they'll be zero. So what would be advice for people who do not earn regular income when it comes to budgeting?
Okay, so I know the audience we are speaking to are predominantly salaried workers, right?
Sure.
But it still is a very relevant question, especially entrepreneurs and commission earners, and of course, consultants. I know some of the people on the call, some of our cherished audience who at some point consider transitioning to consulting. So
Yeah.
it's still a very important thing that they need to know. But then for people whose salaries or income are not consistent and constant, my biggest advice with that when you are budgeting, right?
Yeah.
Use your floor. So I would not even say budget your average income. The approach is to budget around your floor income, right?
Okay.
The lowest amount you reasonably expect in a very bad month. Okay, not your
Sure.
average over a period of time. Now that helps you, you know, have a realistic budget that allows you the things you do. So once you budgeted with your lowest possible income, any extra windfall, any extra money can directly go into your savings. What that does for you is that it helps you build a buffer.
Sure.
So where in periods where the irregular income is being really irregular and it's very small, you'll have built some bit of a buffer to help you. So the caveat here, what I'm saying is that you know how much comes in, use the least that you have ever gotten as your base for your budget and not the average or not even the biggest. And then you are able to build a buffer for yourself. And
Thank
what
you.
this also do, sorry, this is one point. What this also do for you is that it also helps you escape the whole boom and bust. So there are times where you have so much, there are times where you have so much little. So this approach helps you smoothing it out nicely over the period of time.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Eric. If you're just joining us, this is the Access Future Me series, and we're discussing from paycheck to prosperity, mastering personal budgeting for financial freedom. And this is brought to you by Access Pension Trust. So, Eric, talking about personal budgeting or the financial freedom aspect, let me ask this one question we got from our survey. How does proper budgeting support long-term financial independence and then retirement planning as well?
That's a very interesting one. So budgeting and retirement planning are two sides of the same coin, right?
Okay.
A well-structured budget creates the surplus that you need to fund your retirement,
Sure.
for starters. So if your budget is leaking and let's say you consume everything you earn, then basically you are not planning for your future or you're not planning for the long term.
So,
So then basically there's no fuel to help you achieve your long-term goal. So
long-term
you
goal.
need your budget is there to help you squeeze some money, create a surplus, use that surplus into a savings, grow that savings to a point where you can start investing, generate some good returns on that to take care of your long-term financial needs. And that in
Sure.
itself helps put you on the right path to financial independence. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Now, still about that, when it comes to retirement here in Ghana, a lot of people think that you should think about retirement when it is 5 years in sight, because at this age, it doesn't really matter. I still have a lot of time. At what age should workers begin budgeting, especially with retirement in mind? Because we talked about financial freedom, and I think one of the ultimate gift we can give ourselves is financial freedom whilst we work, and then when we go on retirement.
Okay, so before I answer this question, I'll just ask our audience to subtract their current ages from 60, and that should give them a rough idea of the number of years they have to
They
invest
have,
to take care of themselves from 60 till they die. So that's it's a very important reality check. But to your
sure,
question, it's I will say that from your very first paycheck. Okay,
sure,
so we always say in our industry that the best you should have started investing 10 years ago, but the next best time to start investing is now. So if we have early
sure.
career folks on this call, please, you need to start saving now. Because when it comes to long-term wealth creation, there are two main things, consistency and time. Now,
Okay,
the compound growth of a pension's asset over 30 years plus period is dramatic, but
sure.
only if you start early. Now, just to also give you a bit of perspective, a 25-year-old contributing 500 cedis a month, right, is
Yeah,
most likely to retire with a materially better outcome than a 40-year-old contributing 1,500 cedis today. So it's
sure.
important that we start early, we
Early.
start now. We
Okay,
need time, we need consistency, and we need compounding. And
sure.
that will, get us to where we want to get to.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Thank you. So the earlier we start, the better. The best time was the first day you got your appointment letter. The next best time is today. Thank you, Eric, or Mr. Corte, for that. Now, the next question I have here is, um, a lot of people from the survey said they know that they can depend on their mandatory pension contribution. What would be your advice for such people, so that they can also inculcate that advice into their budgeting as they prepare for retirement?
I mean, for such people, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your mandatory tier one and tier two contributions are a floor, not a ceiling. Okay.
Sure, sure.
So, in the minds of the people who designed the Act 760s that we are currently on, was to help us kind of replace our income, right?
Yeah,
And from our research we've done over the period, tier one and tier two basically replaces your income by close to 60%. Now, when I say income, see it as your last salary before retirement. Okay, so or wanting to retire on your salary. Now, if you just rely on tier one and tier two, and that's even for a very disciplined person who's worked for 30 years plus, you are basically replacing your salary by 60 to 65%. Now, your tier three adds up another, let's say, 15%. So you are looking at replacing your salary around 80%, right? But then it's important that you put your destiny to your own hands and look for other alternate way of saving. So you are ideally my recommendation would be that you go beyond this mandatory pension and start doing something for yourself on the side. That should help you balance out nicely. So at retirement, you don't lose your salary. Your retirement income kind of replaces your salary for you. So it's important that you don't just rely on your tier one and tier two,
sure.
and that's that so that we are all happy at retirement. Yeah.
Thank you. And I believe everyone on this call would like to be happy at retirement. Now, in relation to that, what mistake do you think people make financially, especially when it comes to things like the provident fund aspect? Because you mentioned the mandatory tier one, tier two, that is in the minds of people. But can you add something on the provident fund and what mistakes you think people make in relation to the topic?
I think today I'm in a very proverbial mood, and the engineers will tell you that use the right tools for the right job, right? It says Provident Fund, not a chilling account, right? So one of the biggest mistakes I see people do, right, is that, treating a Provident Fund payouts like a windfall. So you hear people working in an organization, oh, tier three, it's time to reduce and reduction to tier three. People just go in there and take out their tier three. Now, you should see your tier three as a retirement resource. It's like the egg that is going to hatch for you in the future. So, your whole plan is that you need to protect it and use it to help you fund yourself when you are not actively earning an income. The only thing the framers of the Act 766 gave you as a right to use at tier three for was primary mortgage, because they realized that at retirement you need a place to lay your head. Apart from that, there's no justification. It doesn't make sense to use your tier three money to buy a car. And I repeat that you can't use your tier three money to buy a car. It's totally wrong. You can't use your tier three money to fund a business. If you want to find ways of raising capital for a business. So go on vacation. You don't use that. So your tier three is to help you get a place to lay your head, and also to help you build your war chest to let you live the kind of life you want to live when you are no longer earning an income. The second mistake is when people, so it's more or less like a follow-up to the first question you asked. So when people are not making voluntary contributions to ensure that they are able to replace that. So that's another painful mistake I see people doing. Then of course the other ones are just administrative. So people failing to update their beneficiary designations and all that. So those are all things that I feel people need to do, because nobody knows tomorrow. I'm not saying that anyone is going to die, but then it's very important that as part of your regular routine, financial retirement planning, health check, these are things you need to do. But so far as investments are concerned, so far as your tier three is concerned, see it as a resource for your future. But then if you have a genuine need for a place to lay your head, I mean, I'm all for it. Kind of use that as a leverage to get like a primary mortgage to take care of yourself, right?
Thank you. We learned that the tier one and the tier two are the base.
The base.
The startup,
Yeah.
necessary condition, but for you to move to that
Yeah.
sufficient condition, the extra one, the ideal one, the tier three comes in. The tier three is not actually an account. We are learning that we shouldn't need to buy a car
At all.
but rather a deal for a house or as a watcher, so that in times of difficulty it can help you. So in relation to that, then can we then talk about emergency funds and other financial saving vehicle that we should have, so that our tier three, our long-term investment fund, can rest? So how do we budget towards? So first of all, before we even start, what is an emergency fund and why is it non-negotiable based on the things you've told us today?
I mean, life in itself is unpredictable. So, in terms from a financial planning perspective, an emergency fund is a fund that gives you buffer, to take care of unplanned expenses. So your emergency fund basically is like that shield in front of your wealth account or your retirement savings account, because if right now you are faced with a major crisis, you would want to live, you want to survive before you start living. So you have no choice than to go into your pensions account, and that might hurt your long-term future. So that's why it's important to have an emergency account. So basically, it's an investment that kind of protects you when you have an issue you can fall back on. So basically, that's what the emergency fund is, and it's explains itself. So that's why it's non-negotiable. It's important to have it to protect your financial future. Yeah,
Negotiable.
at
How
all.
much I need scholar this scholar have agreed that I'm going to start an emergency.
I love working with frameworks, and there's so many frameworks around this. But my favorite that I will always recommend is that, you see, if you work for a period of 5 years, you should have saved at least 6 months of your salary in there, so that when you find yourself in between jobs, you should be able to pay for 6 years. So like we can stretch it further. So then it means that if you work for 10 years, you should have been able to save a year's salary in your emergency account. If you've worked for 15 years, you should have been able to say what, 1 year, 6 months. So that's the thinking. So that just in case you find yourself in between jobs, or there's a major emergency, you have that buffer to take care of you. So that's the bit about it. But you can look at it from different perspectives. Somebody can say that you should be able to have at least 6 months expense. That should be your target after working for 5 years. So, but I feel it's easier to say that let's aim at saving at least 6 months of salary if you've worked for 5 years. So the math works out this way. If you save 10% of your salary every month, in 60 months, which is 5 years, you would have saved 6 months salary. Yeah, so that's how the math
Thank you.
should look
Thank
like.
you. I have two quick follow-ups to this. The first one is, beyond the emergency fund, what other funds must a person have so that one, the emergency fund can serve its purpose, the long-term one can have what other things, or the emergency and the provident fund, for example, or the pension funds are just enough?
Yeah, so it depends on how you want to look at it, but there are a number of funds. I mean, there are people, for instance, I have recommended to people to have what I call like a sinking fund. So basically, that is for large predictable expenses. Okay, so someone can have a fund just because because you have a child who's in, let's say, primary school, you want the child to go to an Ivy League school in the US or anywhere in the world. That liquidity event can be very daunting on your financial planning. So then if you have such goals, you would need to have like a sinking fund that allows you to save for those. But it's not emergency because it's an expense which is predictable, and you know that it will have. Yeah, so that's one of the things. And you can also have a basic educational fund if you have dependents in school. Of course, we've spoken about retirement fund, which you definitely need to have. And also, we also recommend that you have a short-term fund that helps you take care of your day-to-day things. So putting all together nicely, breaking them into three segments, you can have like a short-term fund, a medium-term fund that becomes like an emergency fund, and a long-term fund, which comprises of all your wealth creation funds, like your tier one, tier two, tier three, and anything else to help you live the kind of life you want to live. The first two are to help you manage your life, live decently, and be able to be comfortable. Of course, that people would also want to transition their wealth beautifully. So there's also what we call legacy or estate fund, to help you transfer your wealth to the younger generation or do something for your community and things like that. So
All
it
right.
sits at the heart of financial planning and
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. So the last one on this session before we move to the other one. When it comes to budgeting, when it comes to all of this discussion, when somebody is in debt, you have like a huge debt on your back, and sometimes at the end of the month, almost all your salary is gone into paying or servicing your loans or your debts. How should somebody like that plan or budget or save, especially now that you've introduced emergency fund, sinking fund, etc.?
So one of the things when we do for you when we are doing like a financial plan is to find out where you are, like find your net worth. Positive means you are above ground, and negative means you're in debt and you are below. So when you are in the earth, that what do? You have to dig yourself out. So it's important to look at from a context point of view. It's important to understand the kind of debt you have. The debt repayment itself becomes an expense, right? So our recommendation would be that we'll start by targeting the one of the highest interest rates and try as much as possible to clear. There are so many methods. I mean, there's something that people refer to as the avalanche method, where you are covering minimums on all debts and all that. But then let's just to keep things simple, your debt repayment needs to feature heavily in your budget in terms, and that line becomes an expense, and the target will be to be able to clear that as much as possible. So it becomes the repayment becomes just like any other expense line in your budget. But the goal is that if there are multiple debts, we will start prioritizing the one with the highest interest, because that's where you can save a lot more money for
Thank you.
yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So back to budgeting again, and briefly on some of the methods that we can use to learn how to budget. So can you please explain the various methods of budgeting? We discovered during the research that there's what we call 50, 30, 20, traditional, zero base, envelope, etc. Can you give us an overview on this, and maybe there will be a follow-up question on that? Thank you.
So let's do like a 30 seconds crash course on the types of budgeting methods. So let me run through this quickly. So there's the traditional budgeting that we all know. So this is typically having like a spreadsheet, listing all your sources of income and listing all your expenses. Okay, so this gives you this is best for detail-oriented people who want full control and visibility. All right. This is the to me, this is the most comprehensive approach. So where you are doing the traditional budgeting. But then there's another level where we do that we call the 50-30-20 rule. So what we are saying is that 50% should go into things that you can't do without. So like in your needs. 30% of the budget should go into your wants, 20% of your budget should go into savings and debt repayment. So that's also like a feedback from your earlier question you asked on debt. Because ideally, if you didn't have a debt, that 20% is supposed to go into savings, right? And then this is also best for those who want a simple and a memorable framework. So if you're a framework person, you can do this. But if you feel you're extremely detail oriented, you go with the traditional budgeting. Now, you remember you asked the question about people who don't earn regular income. For them, my biggest recommendation would be that they do the zero-based budgeting. Now, when you talk about zero-based budgeting, what we are saying is that assign your money a job, basically. So every income tie it to an expense, right? And then once you are done, you tie the whatever surplus you have to a saving. So it is neither 50-20-30, neither traditional budgeting. But then, of course, when you have to draw a Venn diagram, you have a lot of intersection between the three parts. Now, the last one, which sometimes is my favorite, sometimes it's the envelope method, where you have like a fiscal envelope. So if let's say Opare is I'm responsible for taking care of you, I have an envelope with Opare and all that. So I have envelopes for everything. Entertainment, I have an envelope for entertainment. I know it's old school, but the people that works for, you put money in it. If the money in the envelope is finished, if a party comes to me for money, I have a party, your envelope is finished. If entertainment wants me, I open the entertainment envelope, there's nothing in there. So that's the envelope method of budgeting as well. So traditional budgeting, 50-30-20 rule, zero-based budgeting, and then the envelope method. Those are the very popular ones that we'll talk about.
Just a quick one. Out of these three, which one do you think the typical Ghanaian would love based on your experience between the four? I'm sure beyond this, there could be even other ones, but the ones we discussed today, which one do you think will be the easiest to work with?
I'm happy you didn't say ordinary Ghanaian, so he's been used to many times. A typical Ghanaian. The well, so like as I was going to, I was trying to link it to various group of people. I mentioned at some point for me, envelope method works. Ghanaians are very diverse, and I feel that the caveat would rather be for a Ghanaian who is detail oriented, go for traditional budgeting. For a Ghanaian who likes, giving out money too much, I recommend the envelope method for you. Okay, so that you know that when you can physically see in the envelope that the money for this particular activity is gone, so then you have nothing. But for engineers, consultants, business owners, entrepreneurs, zero-based budgeting is for you. You can do 50-30-20. For salaried workers who want some guide, or some bit of discipline, you 50-30-20, is good for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If you're just joining us, this is the Axis FutureReady Series. And today we are discussing from paycheck to prosperity, mastering personal budgeting for financial freedom. We've talked about why budgeting matters and some budgeting basics. We've connected budgeting to our pensions. And then we've also looked at emergency funds and some even budgeting methods. Yes, some few before we move on to the live questions from the audience, and just also to remind you, if you have any question, please drop it in the chat box. We've seen a couple of them already. We'll address them before we leave. So, Mr. Quartey, how much budgeting success is behavior versus income level? So when it comes to budgeting success, how does behavior versus income level play a role in making budgeting successful?
So, this interaction we are having falls under what we call behavioral finance. I would say emphatically that 80% behavioral, 20% income. I know we've had this banter back and forth talking about, hey, if you earn more, you'll be okay. but I will still stand my ground and say 80% behavior because I'm the one who has the mic around, right? And 20% income. We have, I mean, we've seen this thing play out several times. We have friends, we have colleagues who work at different places. We all know what they earn and stuff like that. You know how life is for everybody. So you know that people with modest salaries are who are that I know people who have modest salaries who are financially secure. I have friends who work at fantastic places and very high incomes who are just like a paycheck away from crisis. Income creates opportunities, right? But behavior determines outcome. So for me, it's a behavioral thing, any day, anytime. Of course, income is very important, but behavior for me is important. The technical knowledge of how to budget is widely available, but what is rare is emotional discipline. Okay, so most of the things we're talking about, the audience, they know, right? But the emotional discipline to follow through, and to say no to yourself and to others consistently over years, that is where the real work is. And so I feel that if there's anything we should take away from this, you understand that when it comes to financial success, behavioral is key. And I'll put it at 80% behavior, 20% income. All right.
We were talking about methods. You mentioned envelope approach.
Yep.
Sometimes the day you get your money, you get a call that it has swallowed the spoon. What are some of the biggest money leaks that people ignore? Okay, and during the survey, we're looking at data and etc. Can you add a lot to it in terms of things that takes money out of us, but we ignore them or we think they are not significant on in terms of planning for financial freedom?
By the way, that example, no, it won't be a much legal. I mean, that's life and death matter, right? Someone has swallowed the spoon. So, I mean, that one, in that case, your emergency fund is supposed to help with that. But then, of course, if you have some miscellaneous in your budget, that should take care of that. But in terms of money leaks, I mean, subscriptions. I mean, people have all kinds of subscriptions that they don't, all kind of streaming services, gym memberships, that's Netflix, softwares that you bought that you're not using. So it's very important that you pay attention. Also, bank charges and transactions. So those are things that you should also pay attention to. And then, people who are looking for the latest restaurant in town, eating out. I mean, if you have to look at how much you spend eating out, it's very important. I mean, it's important to live and all that, but I mean, as much as possible for your own health and financial health, it's important to reduce on eating out, and then also lending money to family and friends. I mean, it's a very, I know it's a very touchy emotional subject, but it's a major source of leakage. And I know I've spoken about this lifestyle inflation. You are buying overpriced cars, trying to live in a particular way, looking at how people are living like on social media, just trying to catch up with them. You don't even know what they go through. And my recommendation will be that watch out some of these things. If social media is a problem for you, just unfollow anybody who you watch and makes you feel like, getting the latest dress, getting the latest car, and doing all that. So yes, those are very important things that we should look at. So money leaks are indeed a very important part of this whole exercise. Yeah.
Just some quick fire around some very quick areas as we get closer to answering the questions from the chat box. Would you recommend a budgeting app or a physical notebook? Do you think we should see first or we should invest first? Should we have a flexible budget or a fixed one? Like just around this before we move to the section of the questions from the audience.
Well, so it's so I mean in terms of the first one, you were asking about budgeting app or notebook. So for me, my answer will be whichever one you can stick to. Someone will feel more comfortable you working with a spreadsheet, someone will feel more comfortable with an app. So whichever one will help you, that you'll be able to stick to. And for me will be the best one. Our cases are all different. So for someone who's never saved before, I think for when it comes to investment, you need to build your muscles. So my recommendation would be that you start saving your money first, at least first 2 to 3 months. So that will allow you to, that will allow you to settle down and think through, well, build some critical money before you start deploying to any investment. And you need to do your due diligence really well because investments are key. Yeah. So which other questions? So you also asked about flexible
Flexible
or fixed
or
budget.
fixed budget or
Yeah. So I always say that the moment you are done with your budgets, things start changing your life. So the moment your budgets are not flexible, it becomes a bit of a challenge. So your budget should be agile to be able to align to changes in your life. So, but it shouldn't be too rigid. It shouldn't be also too flexible. There should be some balance in there. Um, in terms of habits, I would always say that, no matter how disciplined you are, if you do not automate your savings, it's going to be a very big problem. So you just automate your that 20% that should leave your bank account into investments. And that's really key. And that should help you, And also I think you asked something on what biggest money mistake young workers make. Exactly. So that I feel that one of the biggest mistakes is that we keep on postponing. Oh, we'll start next year, we'll start next year, we'll start next year. And in terms of investments, you ought to start now. So after this, if you don't have any savings, kindly reach out and let's engage. Let's find something for you to start saving in ASAP.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Quartey. If you're just joining us, we're discussing what we can do to move from whatever current financial situation you are to a financial freedom using personal budgeting. We've been discussing a lot, and we'll wrap up with some advice for all the members in this call in relation to this, but we'll want to go quickly to the Q&A sessions and then address them. Eric, I want to begin with this one to light up this particular session. Someone says that Father's Day is coming. He wants to know, and he's asking for all the fathers, if it is advisable to take charge of your wife's income and add that whilst you are budgeting, or you should only budget with the man's money and leave the wife's money. Yes.
I mean, this sounds like a marriage counseling question, right? And not to rock the boat in anyone's house. And I think it depends really on the couple and how you've been living your life over the period. So if both, for me, honestly, if once you are married, there should be transparency, right? So if both of you are earning income, I feel that you should come together and work out your budgets. If you have understanding of sharing responsibilities, i.e., wife pays let's say utilities and water, husband pays for school, etc. So then if you have that, if you've have had that agreement already, then you do your budget along those lines. But so this is a very difficult question because you are talking about a man and a wife, right? So then there's also the role of communication in there. If it becoming too much for you, you need to communicate to the other party so that you lighten the burden on each other. So yes, it's all for some of those nuanced questions. That's why we are here for you. Sometimes in a much larger audience like this, you're not able to give you all that, pertains to you. So we are very happy to take this conversation offline and give you some real life and things. So these are things we've helped people out with. So we are sure that we should be able to get something nice for you to work with.
Thank you. The next question is it advisable to hold an emergency fund in a bank account rather than an investment, given that it may take some time to liquidate or withdraw the cash from an investment in case of an emergency?
That's an awesome question, and as you say, we learn every day, right? So it's not prudent to leave your emergency funds in a bank account. One, because of inflation, it's a silent killer of value. So what my recommendation would be that you put your funds in what we call a near cash instrument. So i.e. a mutual fund, anything that would allow you to redeem your money within 3 to 5 days. But then you can also retain a small portion in cash so that you can start the process. I mean, even if it's a hospital bill you need to pay, you can hold a fort to some bit of cash and take 3 to 5 days to cash out from whichever instrument you've put that in. So for emergency fund, you don't put them in long-term aggressive investments, more or less like capital preservation instruments that are highly liquid. So a mutual fund will be appropriate for an emergency fund.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Quartey. So the next question is, I earn a decent salary and receive regular increment, yet I never seem to have money left at the end of the month. What could I be doing wrong?
You are eating all your money. I mean, you and you need a budget. You really need a budget. So if you are earning well, so for you, I strongly recommend a 30-day reality check for you. Kindly retrace your steps. We are in June, so maybe May's expenditure might be far away. So let the month end. Start writing everything you spent money on from the beginning of the month till now, and do that at the end of the month, and reach out to us. We are happy to help you do the classifications so that you can draw a winning budget that makes sense to you. So you need to look at your financial behaviors, and I honestly feel that you are actually having a good time consuming all your funds and at the moment. So we need to have a conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. So somebody is asking, first of all, he says, grateful for this financial literacy series. What type of investment plan would you advise for a 45-year-old salaried worker?
So once again, context is key. So for a 45-year-old salaried worker, my assumption will be that you are working in a place where your SNET is being paid, your tier two is being paid. I'm not so sure about your tier three, but if there's no tier three for you, kindly start a personal pension for yourself. Then if you still have some bit of headroom, start doing something for your long term. If you don't have an emergency account, start building the emergency account now. It sounds of a lot, but then you would just draw this plan down nicely and start tackling them one after the other. Trust me, by the time you are 50, you would have ensured that you have all these accounts and things, you have very, very wonderful retirement outcomes.
Thank you again, Mr. Quartey. If you're just joining us once again, yeah, welcome to this month's edition, and we're talking about budgeting towards financial freedom. And the next question from our audience is, will it be financially advisable to withdraw funds from my tier 3 pension account to commence a building project now, or I should wait until I attain my target investment amount and use the accumulated returns to finance the project instead? It's packed, but I hope you got it. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so it's also a very tricky question. That's purely a real estate play, right? And there's also nuance. There's so many answers to this question, but the main point is that, is the Provident Fund able to take care of the building project? If not, it becomes quite tricky because you wouldn't want to lock up. Because my assumption is that you're currently renting, so you wouldn't want to lock up your Provident Fund into a building project that is not done. You are still paying rent and you are losing on the interest you would have earned. So there's a smart way to go about this. You can leverage. So you can actually reach out to us. There's a real estate professional in-house who will deal with this for you. But then just to hazard some solutions to you, you can actually, the law allows you to take a loan on that. So you could get a mortgage and use your Provident Fund as collateral. Now you don't miss out on it. Your Provident Fund still works for you. It still makes money for you, whilst your mortgage helps you put up that building. Now the mortgage repayment, you can consider that as the rent that you are paying to your current landlord, and that's what you call a leverage play, leverage real estate play. That would help you. So that would be a simple answer to this question. But for the nitty-gritties, you need to reach out to us. We'll refer you to our real estate professional in-house to give you some further advice on this.
Thank you, Mr. Quartey. So the next question is, many of us are supporting spouses and children and even aging parents at the same time. How do we combine responsible budgeting without compromising our own retirement or our future?
I mean, this is a very hard one, and it's a reality for most Ghanaians because most of us parents spent their hard earning years taking care of the family, so they never really had careers just to get us to where we are. So it's unfortunate, not unfortunate, but it's our responsibility to take care of them. So those are all things that should feature in our budget because they are they are not surprise expenditures. They are things we know that we need to deal with. So yes, they all form part of our budget. So we need to budget for everything you spend on. So that even requires us to be extremely disciplined so that we are still able to have that 10 to 20% to save on the side as well. So yes, it's still not an excuse to say that, yeah, I have parents to take care of, I have this to take care of, I have spouses to support and all that. But if you have people in your life you are supporting who are at working ages, that also becomes a different conversation to find ways and means of helping them to also start generating some bits of an income for themselves as well. So yes, you still have to budget and then ensure that you still have that small amount of funds to cream off to invest for your future as well.
Yes, explaining earlier, you mentioned that if you have people that are taking care of like this, one of the methods of budgeting was helpful. We've had two separate questions asking for clarification, one on the zero method budgeting, and then the other on the 50-30 rule. So if you can kindly go over the two budgeting methods out of the four you explained. So the 20, 30, 50, and then the zero method. If you can go over them again briefly for our audience. Thank you.
Okay, so the zero-based budgeting method, I mentioned categorically clear that I strongly recommend that for people who have irregular incomes. Okay, so if you have a regular income, it doesn't make too much sense. But for irregular incomes, for the zero budgeting based approach, all you are saying is that, just see it this way, the high level reasoning behind it is that you are assigning a job for every income. So because remember that an irregular income money comes at different points in time. So whichever money is coming in, you are assigning a tax to it. So if money A comes, it's going to pay the school fees. If money B is going to do A, B, C, D. And then when most of your things that you need to survive or live on have been met, then the rest that comes, you also assign it to a saving. So there's no surplus when it comes to zero-based budgeting. So your inflows should always be equal to your outflows. And your outflows will also include an investment. Right, so that's the zero-based budgeting. Now, but then I've also mentioned that, you see, with all the budgeting methods, there are some bits of intersections. So you can actually be doing a zero-based budgeting, but then you can have a 50-30-20 rule at the back of your mind. Right. Now, for the 50-30-20 rule, it's for someone who has been able to identify what his needs and wants are. So for 50-30-20 rule, what we are saying is that 50% should go into your needs, 30 should go into your wants, 20 should go into your savings. But someone who is heavily indebted, that 20% that is going to savings, you realize that 20%, most of it will be going toward debt repayment. Yeah, so that's the general caveat. But then in some instances, depending upon your situation, you might have to play around the 50-30-20 rule a bit. So someone will say that my needs literally takes my whole salary. So then you should be able to have that level of flexibility to say that, well, I need to stretch it. So maybe I'll move towards 70, and 20-10 or something. Yes. But if you find yourself in such a situation, you need to start working on yourself, invest a little bit more in your ability to earn more. Because if you invest in yourself, you increase your level of skill, definitely your income levels will also go high. And I know this is very controversial in Ghana, but I mean it's proven to be true in a lot of places. So 50-30-20 needs, wants, and investment. But then your mind is sometimes able to classify your wants as needs. And
Yeah.
those are the discipline you need to. So basically, your need is something you can't do without. Your wants is something that you really need to live, but you can't do without it. Right. So
Okay.
that's the whole principle. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Cotton, on that. So, a few questions here as we get closer to the end of the session. Somebody is asking you to explain the tier one, tier two, what it means. You made mention of them in passing during your presentation. So briefly, if you can explain what they mean, please.
So I mentioned tier one is basically your SNITs. Okay, so that is 13% of your salary paid to SNIT for you by your employer. The purpose of tier one is to pay you monthly income till you pass away. Right now, so that's what tier one is, and it goes into what we call a defined benefit scheme. So it's paying you, and we can have a whole crash course on that in terms of payments and all that. Tier two is 5% of your earnings, that your basic salary that is taken out of your salary that goes into a tier two scheme, an investment scheme. That investment is defined contribution in nature, which means that the amount of money invested plus the interest accrued on that money. So, and that is paid out to you as a lump sum at your retirement. So, tier two will give you a lump sum at retirement. Tier one will give you monthly pensions till you pass away. So that's what tier one and tier two is. And then let me give you a bonus. Tier three is the voluntary wing, which depending upon your employer, you have up to 16.5 of your salary to save money in. You get to enjoy free taxes. However, you are supposed to retain your investments for a period of 10 years. And so that's what tier three basically is, and that's what tier three basically does for you.
All right, sure. Thank you, Mr. Quartey, on that. So in Ghana, where inflation and increasing cost of living is problematic, how can the worker avoid constantly dipping into their savings just to meet everyday expenses? I think the emergency fund bit will answer that. I don't know if you agree with me on that.
Yeah, the emergency fund kind of smoothens you a bit, cushions you a bit in high inflation. And sometimes, in with high inflation, what you also see a lot of cost of living adjustment. Sometimes we have to be fair to our employers, and so but you need to be very disciplined as well to have that. And thankfully, we are experiencing some bit of low inflation. So let's just pray that continues for a long time. But then in a highly inflationary economic situation is very hard. But then that's when budgeting becomes extra key. Is you also need to make some adjustments to your lifestyles as well. Trust me, for everything you buy, there's always a cheaper option. So when things are going up, you can dance around it. So it shouldn't be just consumption led. Sometimes you can also tighten your belt a bit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quartey. Quick one. So there are two questions which are somewhat related, so I'll read them both. First part, what would be advice to a 30-year-old and a 50-year-old, so the two people, and what would be the single most important budgeting priority for the two of them? So somebody who is 30, somebody who is 50. And the second part is, from your experience, what do you think one financial decision making that is often undermine people's, so the person asking basically on the mistakes that people makes, what do you think is the one main financial decision that people make that undermines their retirement security later in life? So the main one.
The advice for the 30-year-old, the 50-year-old.
Yeah.
Start saving now.
Okay.
But I would actually also need to save more because for a 50-year-old, you need, I think I was a meter for a while. So for a 50, for a 50-year-old, you need to save more. So let me retrace back to the 30-year-old. So the 30-year-old, I was saying that most likely that you are living rent-free, you are eating free food from your parents, you are not paying bills. So my recommendation would be that try and save close to about half of your income if you can. And that way you'd have built your habits, your finance, some bit of savings for yourself. So when you set out to be on your own, you are comfortable and you are able to, ride through life. For a 50-year-old, you have just 10 years to retire. And now there's a big issue at retirement. We have what we call the longevity risk, where people are likely to outlive their assets. So for 10 years retirement, your priorities in life ought to change. You need to gear up and make sure that your tier 2s on point, go to SNIT, and make sure all your contributions are there, have a rough amount of what to expect from SNIT, check on your tier 2, make sure you port from, if you've had different employers, make sure you port and consolidate all into one fund. Your tier 3, if you have a tier 3, check up on it. And if you can squeeze to aim at saving close to 30 to 35% of your income, you need to be extremely aggressive on that so that you're able to build something significant for yourself to live on when you are no longer actively earning an income. So those will be some of the recommendations. Other non-financial recommendation would be that if it's possible to start building your network, investing more into your skill so that when you are out of your current employment, you have the necessary skill to consult and still generate some bit of income. You should also do that. So those are some of the things that I'll tell a 50-year-old who has just about 10 years to exit work.
Sure, thank you. So somebody is asking what your take on the, when it comes to delay gratification in a system where everyone is chasing comfort today, and the cost of items also keep changing rapidly. So what would be advice to the audience on this?
So, I mean, you need to have a balance, right? I'm all out for being disciplined financially. I'm all out for surviving before living. But then there's also a group, say, the YOLO generation. I say you only live once, and life is short and all that. Listen, all those things, when you don't have money, you'll be very, very miserable. So long as you should do everything you can to avoid that misery. You can have the nicest of things now. If you are not able to afford those things in the next 5, 10 years, you might as well not have had it in the first place. So delayed gratification is still very, very relevant in our times. There are times where it makes sense to purchase certain things because of information you have. If you're an expert at reading leading indicators like the economy, you know where things are going to be and stuff like that. Sometimes it will make a bit of sense. But then for me, I'll still stand by delayed gratification. Cut your quota according to your size. If you've not saved enough to own a TV, you have no business owning a TV. It doesn't make sense to go for a loan to get a TV. If you've saved money and you've gotten to the level of owning a TV and an investment opportunity comes, it makes sense to do the delayed gratification. You practice delayed gratification with a goal in mind, not because you heard someone say do delayed gratification. So that, because the whole point of delayed gratification is to put you in a stronger position. So if that decision is going to end up with you being a better financially sound position, yes, go for delayed gratification and don't just go and gratify yourself and then you are down financially. So that would be my personal take on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Quartey. The questions keep coming, even though we've promised ourselves to stick within 1 hour. So maybe please pardon us if we go just about 5 minutes over the call. That's to you, our audience. Quick one also, Eric, here. Somebody would like to know how should somebody budget for large but unavoidable future expenses such as children's education and then health care?
Yeah, so we had mentioned earlier that for large but unavoidable, so you've given two things that might have slightly different characteristics. We mentioned the fact that you need to have like a sinking fund if you have a goal that requires you paying significant amounts of fees for kids' college education. So before the event happens, 5 year, 10 year to time, you've already created that sinking fund. Sinking fund is basically like an investment, right? To take care of that. So that handles that. As a financial plan, it's also important to have some bit of insurance. So it will be helpful to talk to an insurance professional and to shop for a health insurance, especially if you have a lot of underlying conditions. For anyone who has a lot of underlying conditions, it's a no-brainer to have some bit of health insurance to protect you. But yes, for large like this, that would have to go into your financial plan. And then once there's a financial plan, the plan will illustrate that goal. And that goal will be quantified into financial terms. And then you break it down and then it will feature heavily in your budget. So then you know that every month I'm putting in, let's say, 500 cedis into an investment to take care of this particular event I'm expecting to happen in 2030 years. So yeah, so what we are discussing is purely on budgeting, but there's a much bigger picture where we talk about financial planning that has 6 different pillars. So, but then we also mentioned from the beginning that this acts as the bridge from what we earn, what we expend, and it also acts as a pivot in your whole financial plan. So your budget is what's able to help you create a surplus to be able to help you invest to fund your future goals. So this is just to give you some further context of what we are doing. That's why we might not touch on certain subjects, just to be able to, give you as much as we can on budgeting within the short period of time.
Some of the questions have also been answered in the chat box. So if you ask the question and you've not heard it live, please check the chat box. There's also an answer that has been provided as well. Eric, quick one. So somebody wants to know the options available for someone who is not in the corporate environment but would want to save towards retirement. What would be advice for such a person?
Personal pension. So tier three, tier three the whole point of the pension was to tackle the issue of inclusion. So
Sure.
under tier three, provident funds are employer based, and then personal pensions are individual based. And thankfully,
Yeah.
they don't work like insurance. So I think that has been the concern of many. You are
Sure.
not required to make a regular contribution. Whenever you have a windfall, you can go and dump it in there. It has all the protection like tier one, tier two, tier three. It's tax qualified, there are tax benefits on there, and there's also greater transparency. They are defined contribution in nature, and they are handled by experts. So you have your peace of mind. You open a personal pensions account, you put money in there. We are happy to engage you that we have about the biggest personal pension in Ghana, which I would strongly recommend to anybody outside the corporate space, so that you can
join.
just enroll on and put some money in there. The good thing is that you have visibility over your funds via mobile app, via CRM portals, and all that. And once again, you're not required to make mandatory contributions towards it. So that's one thing that scares a lot of people. So it's very flexible and designed for people who are actually out of the corporate space.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Quartey. This has been the Access Future Ready series brought to you by Access Pension Trust. We've discussed Paycheck to Prosperity, mastering personal budgeting for financial freedom, and we have learned a lot. I have personally learned a lot, even though we did this survey together. And I've seen a couple of comments in the chat also praising it. Be rest assured that it will not stop. Next month also will come your way again. So please spread the news that you know that may not necessarily have an account with Access Pension Trust. Before we go, Mr. Quartey will share his final words with us. You spread the information to your colleagues and even people that you know that no. Okay. Apologies. I was told my microphone was having an issue. Apologies for that. So I was saying that this is the Access Future Ready series brought to you by Access Pension Trust. We will come your way again next month with another edition. But before Eric gives us, or Mr. Quartey gives us his closing remarks, just to remind you that spread the news, tell your friends, tell a colleague, tell a family member. They do not have to have anything to do with Access. Once you receive the link for the next session, just forward it to your colleague. And I've seen a lot of questions about whether this recording will be available. Yes, it will be available. We will share that with you, the information with you, so that you can listen to it again. You and I will agree that we've learned a lot from this. You can add this to your collection of personal development tools. So we'll go to Mr. Quartey one more time as we take his last advice and special advice for members concerning their pensions and members who are on this call, and any other thing he would want to add as a parting gift for sharing 1 hour with him this morning. So Mr. Quartey, please give us your last parting words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Opari, for giving me this opportunity to engage with a wonderful audience, and everybody on this call is a winner. I mean, the mere fact that you just joined tells us that you are very serious about your financial futures. I just would want to end by saying everybody needs a budget. Everybody needs a financial plan. Actually, we are supposed to have started saving 10 years ago, but the next best time to save is now. So let's take action. And for those of us who've never had a budget before, I'm strongly recommending that. You see, it's not enough to just come and listen to us and go. So we don't want this to be like a talk shop. We want to see impacts in your lives. So from here, do yourself a favor, do your future self a favor. Just try and look back to about 2 or 3 weeks ago from the start of the month. Itemize all the things you've spent your money on. That would give you a good idea of who you are when it comes to money and finances. And then we can start, engaging. And our doors are always open. We are very happy to help you with this. In fact, for those of you who are interested, we are happy to share with you some budgeting tools you can play around with and all that. So thank you very much, and looking forward to engaging soon.
Thank you, Mr. Quartey. So just as our final words one more time, you can reach out to our website, accesspension.com, for more information. You can also send us an email if you require a one-on-one financial planning session that's from our wealth management session. That's info@accesswealthmanagement.com. It is in the chat box, so please go through the chat. You'll see the email, the dedicated email for one-on-one financial consultation as well. Like I mentioned, will be on your screens, in your emails, in your SMS chat again next month as we discuss another exciting topic in the Access Future Ready series. It's been wonderful having you. This was brought to you by Access Pension Trust, your reliable partner in pension. Spread the news so that together we can all achieve financial freedom, because if you achieve financial freedom and your friends do not, they will always borrow from you and you might go back to where they are. So once we share, the whole community, the whole group, the whole brotherhood, the whole sisterhood will become empowered. It's been nice having you. God bless you, and all the best to our Black Stars in our next sessions. See you in July. Thank you. Bye.